what is your reaction to the latest from Ja Morant?
Incredibly disappointed, disgusted.
Do you think that you will remain with the Grizzlies past the trade deadline?
You said what my reaction was?
Yes, sir.
Live with it.
For years, Ja Morant was supposed to be one of the NBA's safest bets. A generational athlete, a franchise cornerstone, the face of a Memphis Grizzlies team that was built to rise together and stay together. But right now, the situation between Ja Morant and the Grizzlies is getting real messy.
Shams, you reported last week that for the first time, the Grizzlies, they are open to moving on from Ja Morant. So what does this look like now?
And it's not because of one headline or one bad stretch of games. It's because everything is happening at once. Injuries, suspensions, trade rumors, public frustration, and a front office that's quietly doing something that would have been unthinkable just a couple years ago. Listening. This isn't just about whether Ja Morant gets traded. It's about what happens when a franchise star no longer fits cleanly into his team's direction, and when the rest of the league isn't exactly lining up to bail anyone out.
According to them, probably don't play me, honestly. That's what basically the message was after. So.
Because here's the uncomfortable truth. This situation isn't loud yet, but it's unstable. And unstable situations in the NBA almost always get worse before they get. Understand why this feels messy now? You have to remember what Ja Morant was supposed to be. Ja wasn't just a star. He was a cultural reset. He made Memphis exciting. He made them nationally relevant. He gave the franchise swagger it had never truly owned before. The Grizzlies didn't just build around Ja Morant, they became him.
Williams and Ja, there's 40 inches on your head.
But over time, that identity started to crack. Ja missed time, then he missed more time. Then came the suspensions. Then came the injuries again. And suddenly, Memphis wasn't dealing with a normal star trajectory. They were dealing with uncertainty, layered on top of uncertainty.
The contact from Dort, and Morant is still down.
This season was supposed to be the reset, the back-to-basketball year, the clean slate, the moment where Ja reminded everyone why he was untouchable. Instead, it's raised more questions than answers. Let's get this part straight. Ja Morant is still extremely talented, but this season hasn't looked like a superstar stabilizing a franchise. It's looked like a team constantly trying to adjust. The efficiency hasn't been elite, the rhythm hasn't been consistent, and the availability hasn't been reliable. And that matters more than fans want to admit, because the NBA doesn't run on highlights, it runs on patterns. And right now, the pattern with Ja Morant is interrupted seasons, uneven stretches, and a constant question of whether he can stay on the floor long enough to build momentum. That doesn't make him washed. It doesn't erase what he's capable of, but it does make him complicated, and complicated stars are the hardest ones to commit your future to. This is where the Ja Morant situation officially stops feeling theoretical and starts feeling real, because the Memphis Grizzlies are listening. That doesn't mean Ja Morant is on the verge of being traded tomorrow. It doesn't mean the front office has given up on him. But franchises do not listen on players they believe are untouchable. They just don't. Listening is a signal. It's an acknowledgement that something isn't aligning the way it should. And for Memphis, that acknowledgement is massive, because this is the same organization that once treated Ja Morant as the unquestioned face of everything they were building. But now, internally, the Grizzlies are being forced to ask uncomfortable questions. Can this team reach its ceiling with Ja as the centerpiece? Can they build long-term stability around a player whose availability has been inconsistent? And most importantly, can they afford to wait for things to stabilize? Those questions don't get asked unless doubt already exists, and that's what makes this messy. Here's the part that makes this situation even messier. The Grizzlies didn't just prepare for life without Ja Morant. They actively started moving in a different direction. Trading Desmond Bane in the offseason wasn't just a basketball decision, it was a signal. Bane wasn't just a complimentary scorer. He was one of the safest pieces on the roster. Durable, efficient, low drama, and entering his prime. Teams don't move players like that unless they're reshaping their priorities. And once that move happened, the Grizzlies' roster construction started telling a different story. Less emphasis on guard-heavy offense, more flexibility, more optionality, more willingness to reset timelines instead of doubling down. That doesn't mean Memphis chose against Ja Morant in a vacuum, but it does mean they stopped building exclusively for him. And that's a subtle but massive shift, because franchises that are fully committed to a star don't open themselves up to alternate futures. Memphis did. Even when Ja is active, the tension doesn't disappear. There have been visible moments of frustration toward coaching decisions, toward structure, toward how the offense flows. None of it is explosive on its own, but patterns don't need to be dramatic to be concerning. Then there's the public layer, cryptic posts, subtle comments, body language that fans immediately clip and circulate. And once that happens, the situation stops being contained. Front offices around the league notice this stuff because they have to. They're not just acquiring players, they're acquiring narratives, and Ja Morant now comes with one. This is where expectations completely break down. Fans assume a player like Ja Morant would trigger a massive bidding war. In reality, the market's cautious, almost hesitant. Teams are asking questions, teams are running scenarios, but teams are not rushing. Why? Because acquiring Ja Morant doesn't just cost assets, it costs responsibility. If Ja thrives, he gets the credit. If things unravel, the franchise owns the fallout. And that asymmetry makes front offices pause, especially when the contract is massive, the timeline is unclear, and the margin for error is slim. One of the biggest reasons this whole situation is so messy, and one that often gets overlooked in fan debates, is Ja Morant's contract structure. Ja is currently in the middle of a 5-year, fully guaranteed max extension that he signed with the Memphis Grizzlies. That deal is worth roughly $197.2 million total, and it carries through the 2027-28 season. Here's how that breaks down in real dollars you can understand. 2024-25, $36.7 million 2025-26, $39.4 million 2026-27, $42.2 million 2027-28, $44.9 million, all fully guaranteed, with no player options that would let him exit early. These are elite level salaries, not starter figures or placeholder numbers. They put Ja in the top tier of NBA earners, which on the surface makes sense. He's a 2-time All-Star and one of the most dynamic players in the league. But here's why his contract becomes a real complicating factor in this messy trade scenario.
1. Big salaries require big returns. Because Ja's salary is so large, any team that wanted to trade for him must match that salary under NBA trade rules. You can't just take a $39 million player without sending back roughly equal money, or better, in return. That severely limits the pool of teams who could even financially make a deal work. A contender with a planned core and little cap flexibility could want Ja, but simply can't match the numbers. Teams without matching salary space have to include multiple players, draft picks, or bad contracts on the other side just to satisfy league trade rules, and Memphis won't settle for minimal return on a max-paid star. 2. Guaranteed money means real commitment. There are no early exits or team options on this extension. Memphis can't create cap room by declining him next year. A team trading for him must be prepared to carry that contract for the next few seasons, whether Ja plays at an all-star level or not. In practical terms, that means that money sits on the payroll no matter what. It limits future free agent flexibility. It can restrict other roster moves long after the trade. And in a league where financial flexibility is a cornerstone of long-term success, big guaranteed deals like this become a double-edged sword.
This is the part that turns messy situations into lingering ones. There's no obvious team screaming, "This is it." Rebuilding teams don't want to accelerate their timeline with a max contract star. Contenders don't want volatility that could derail chemistry. Middle-tier teams are afraid of committing to the wrong version of the future. So Ja Morant exists in limbo. Desired in theory, complicated in practice. And limbo is where rumors multiply, leverage erodes, and relationships strain. This might be the most pivotal stretch of Ja Morant's career, not because of basketball, but because of perception. He's no longer evaluated purely on upside. He's no longer assumed to be untouchable. He's being viewed as a calculated risk. And once that shift happens, it's hard to reverse. The league moves fast. Narratives harden quickly. Patience disappears. The Ja Morant situation with the Grizzlies hasn't exploded. At least not yet. There hasn't been a trade. There hasn't been a public standoff. There hasn't been a moment where either side has fully committed one way or the other. And that's what makes this so uneasy. Because the most dangerous situations in the NBA aren't the loud ones. They're the unresolved ones. Right now, Memphis is stuck between believing in Ja Morant's elite talent and confronting the uncertainty that comes with it. Availability, fit, timing, and long-term stability are all being weighed at the same time. If the Grizzlies double down and things don't stabilize, the risk only grows. If they move too quickly and don't get a clear win, they reshape the franchise overnight. And if they do nothing, the tension doesn't disappear, it lingers. For Ja Morant, this is a turning point. For the first time, his future isn't being discussed as a certainty, but as a question. Not just how good he is, but how safe the bet feels. Whether he stays in Memphis or ends up somewhere else, this moment matters. The conversations are happening, the uncertainty is public, and once that door opens, it rarely closes cleanly. The situation might not look explosive yet, but it's unstable. And in the NBA, instability is where things usually get messy. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.